is the 86th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the second week of April 2012. This episode is rightly titled, The Permissioner. Dun dun dun. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, your cloud computing experts and makers of The Permissioner. I'm your host, Jason Atwood, and joining me for the 86th time is the co-host and head of permissioning, Justin Edelstein. Justin, how you doing?
I'm doing just well, thank you. We didn't have this big of a party for compliance for Chatter, did we?
Nope.
I just snuck that one in there.
Yeah, well, it's just, you know what? We could make it an all Arkus
Arkus Picks Day.
We're going to talk about important things you cannot give up. All right, so we have an agenda. We actually have a jam-packed agenda. We have some a new blog post to talk about Outlook considerations.
I like it.
You like that one? I like it too because I wrote it. And then we have some Facebook news. We have some Mac news. And then we have some cool Arkus news. And then we have our CloudFocus app pick of the weeks, of which I think I'm pulling a first ever, which we'll talk about. It's a first ever, so stay tuned.
Yeah, you are pulling a first ever.
It's a
I
first
know what
ever.
you're doing here, and I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a first ever.
You know what I'm going to do next week?
Yeah, talk about it later.
All right.
Got to keep the anticipation.
All right. I'm going to tell you, right before you pick this, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to pick next week.
Okay.
I'm going to let the cat out of the bag.
All right, let's go. Well,
Okay.
that's not going to be good for our audience. They wouldn't want to tune in next week.
They'll tune in.
All right, so first thing on the docket is the blog post of the week, which is at blog.arkusinc.com, of course. This week's topic, which is good for all you Salesforce people, is actually a blog post entitled 5 Salesforce Outlook Sync Implementation Considerations. Say that 5 times fast, and then call me in the morning.
You couldn't.
This came about from the blog master.
That's me.
That's that we like to call you, who sets the agenda for the blog, as in all partners of Arkus, actually all employees of Arkus at this point. Everybody gets in on the blogging. But it was my turn this week, and I have been doing a lot of implementations where Outlook synchronization was one of the gotta-haves.
Yep.
Must-dos.
That's why I signed it to you.
And in doing so, I've learned a lot.
Another reason why I signed it to you.
And so I wrote a blog post basically just talking about what you need to consider. It is not the how do you do it, although I give a couple hints, because that would be a long blog post. But it's basically, here's what you should be thinking about when you're doing some Outlook considerations.
I think your first consideration is probably one that gets overlooked at the very onset, but is a very important one, which is, I'll just go into, not to go through all 5 of them, but I think the first one's very important, is knowing your edition, knowing what you're going to choose, knowing what platform you're sitting on, meaning, your operating system and your version of Outlook that you're actually using. Very important to pick the right Salesforce sync solution, because as we know, there are 2 of them for the time being.
That's right.
There's the old plugin, which we all know and love, and then there's
another word for love.
There's another word for love, but I'm going to keep that out of this clean podcast.
Yep.
And then there's the new Salesforce for Outlook, which is the system tray kind of service that's running in the background that I much prefer. I have a lot more control over as a system administrator.
Yeah.
Can set the configuration for the user inside the Salesforce interface. Don't have to make them do a whole lot of individual choices for what they want to sync.
Right.
But again, it doesn't work with all system setups. Like if we were at our old Megacorp, we wouldn't.
200th anniversary of the Megacorp.
Really?
This year.
No kidding.
Yep. So go look that up.
Wow. We couldn't use the new Salesforce for Outlook because we were on some old stuff. So, you got to keep that in mind and know the limitations. Know what you're getting into before you even start defining what you want to do. Know which one you're going to use.
Right.
So that was. For me, that was like an eye-opener, like, I kind of don't even think about it. I ask the questions, and I say, what version of Outlook you're on, and then I just make sure they can use the new one.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people can't use the new one, and they have to use the old plugin. And up until very recently, the plugin had, I think the plugin might have one more feature than the.
It has some things in there. recently, I think in the spring release of the new Salesforce for Outlook, they finally added the ability to add cases,
Right.
which I think was like the last outlier,
Right,
if I remember correctly.
It was tasks and cases were the two last outliers, and they've added those. So anyway, a couple other things, but I'll just read off the topics, and then you can go read them. But like what to sync, extend or replace Outlook, picking sync, and then your plan of attack at the end, which I really talk about, like, because it gets down to how do you get your data in there, because usually it's a lot of duplicates. So anyway, that's at blog.arkussync.com. Please, I'll hit us up with a comment at the end if you like what you read. We will respond so that you can use the discuss. You can sign in with any of your social places. So you can sign in with Twitter or Facebook or whatever. But hit us up with discuss. We've been good conversations going on.
I was just going to say, we had some good conversations going on the previous blog post about the cross-object workflow rules. So,
right.
And we were engaged.
Yes.
We are there.
We are part of this. We are part of the social enterprise. We make time to do that. All right. So next up is a little bit of news. Although I'm not really sure how this is news, but I guess it is news. It's kind of been a slow cloud week. We also did a podcast last Thursday?
We did it on Friday.
Friday.
So it's earlier in the week this week.
It's Wednesday afternoon. So maybe big stuff will happen tomorrow.
Maybe.
But the stuff that happened last week was Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion.
That's a lot of dollars.
I will say.
$1 billion?
$1 billion.
For a piece of software that took initially 8 weeks to write.
And yeah, has some filters and you can share photos.
Pretty neat.
Why couldn't Facebook literally build that in maybe 7 minutes? They already have an app that sits on your device that takes photos.
Yeah,
and
I
can
don't know why
upload
they
them.
couldn't just put the little filters on it.
Buy some filters. So
Instagram's got some serious stickiness with its user base. Like, people who use Instagram and share photos via Instagram really like Instagram. I'm not one of those people. I have a lot of friends who've said to me, get on Instagram. I want to share my photos with you. I'm like, no, I just don't care. I don't take photos. I'm not that person. If I take a photo that I really want to share with people, I'll throw it on Facebook and people will see it. Or I'll iMessage it to you or whatever. But I know some people who are on Instagram who just love it. It's sticky. They really like the whole social aspect of the photos. And it's not even so much about the cool filtering, because there's a million of those apps out there now. It's more the way that you interact with people in it, and I think that's Facebook's thing, right? If you're gonna encroach on people interacting with other people on the internet,
we will buy you.
We will buy you.
By the way,
because we own the way people talk to other people on the internet.
Jason Atwood Enterprises, LLC, just built an app that allows people to interact with people.
Really?
Yes.
Via email.
No, I don't know. Yeah, by email? It's called email. Facebook, come talk to me. I have every user you have.
We've revolutionized the way people talk to each other. It's called messages.
So the one funny thing. First of all, if you haven't seen it yet, I think Jon Stewart did a piece about it last night. On the
Daily Show.
On Daily Show, very funny.
He's always very funny.
He did it about.
I haven't watched the Daily Show in so long. I really should.
I watch
with the presidential election and things.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch him diagnose those things.
I watch it on Hulu Plus. I love it on Hulu Plus.
Roku box.
Yes, and then I just figured out you. But I thought the stat that came up is they're paying $33 per user. So whatever that it's 300 million users. Is that right?
So Facebook is paying that amount of money per user.
Per user,
and they're not even unique, because more than likely they're already Facebook users.
No, I will
90%,
98%. Because if you're an Instagram user, you're not on Facebook. Like, you're in this.
I've never used Instagram. It's likely. So, did you sign up with your Facebook account?
One of my others.
I'm sure that's
Facebook.
how you do it, right?
So just as a side note, let's spin this back to Salesforce.
Yeah, spin it.
Instagram is one of the things you can connect up in Clout.
Oh.
So I actually joined Instagram. I'd seen it in a while, and I'd seen it.
You were trying to get your Cloud score up?
I was trying to get my Cloud score up, so I joined Instagram and took a couple pictures. I just don't. It's like I see the funny picture, and I'm like, oh, I want to take a picture of that, but I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I can't do it. So I don't, because I need an Instagram, super Instagram.
I don't do that. my girlfriend is like that, but she doesn't pull out her. She carries around cameras. She pulls out her camera and takes a picture of it.
Then doesn't upload it to Instagram.
Uploads it to Picasa or Flickr.
Right. So anyway, kind of interesting. I think this is part of this big merger 2012. We're going to see big merger after big merger after big merger. It's just crazy. I mean, first we had Draw Something being bought for, what was it, 300 million, 200 million?
$200 million for something that was hot for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yep, and then Instagram being bought. It's almost like they
At
don't
least
know
Instagram's been hot, like one of the hottest iPhone apps.
For like a year? 6 months?
For a while.
What defines hot anymore?
Well, the lifespan of... It's got a good chunk of the timeline of when iPhone apps, I think it's been out for a while, not just 6 months.
So in other news, and again, we're kind of suffering for cloud news this week.
Why is this on our agenda?
Well, then we can skip it. But basically, it was a big to-do. I've had people ask me why. The big to-do about the Mac virus that came out last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess.
I don't even know about it.
Oh, well, then I'll tell you about it. So there was a virus that came out. It affected between 500 and 600,000 people. Macs. It was based on a security flaw in the Java plugin.
That's why I updated my machine today with the Java.
They've done 2 since. So it's kind of interesting because Mac viruses don't come up that much. And as the Mac community, as our 2 MacBooks sit toe to toe here, we don't really do a lot of the virus stuff. But this is one of those. Every once in a while, one comes out.
Do you have antivirus software on your computer?
Yeah, I call it OS 10.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't have antivirus software because I don't get infected by viruses. If I got 3 or 4 viruses, I would probably get it, but I don't. I used to have it on my Windows.
Oh, I hated that stuff.
Yeah,
so it would always pop things up and like ask you to do things, and I didn't like that.
I just think
update every day.
Interesting thing is when a virus comes out, the virus is always it's just associated to the thing, so it's always like Mac OS has a virus, and what I wanted to bring up on the podcast is kind of like, yeah, it's a Mac OS, but it's based on a flaw in the Java code, in this Java JVM that's on your machine. So while there is
fanboy alert,
fanboy alert. So be careful what you say when you say there's a Mac OS virus. Yeah, there's a Mac OS virus, but whatever. Actually, I have not checked to even see if I'm infected. I don't even care.
How do you even do that?
Yeah, that's the other thing. To check to see if you're infected, you know what they tell you to do? Go download some apps. And I'm like, flash checker dot whatever. And I'm like, no, because that seems to me that if I were a virus writer,
that's where I'd put my virus.
I'd put my viruses in the virus checkers.
Yeah, that's like when you go to like speedtest.net and it's like, need faster browser, download Google Chrome.
Yeah,
and it looks like you're starting the test, but you're not. You're downloading something else.
Don't do that. Yeah. So anyway, interesting thing. Again, not a lot of cloud news.
There's one big bit of cloud
news. But we have
news.
one bit of news, which, again, you pointed out. So this is a little bit of homerism, but I think it's interesting for our Salesforce community. So a while back in Dreamforce, Arkus, the company that you and I work for, released an app called Compliance for Chatter. And it's an app to log Chatter posts and make them so you can report on them and you can log them, and if anybody deletes they don't delete the underlying object that's copied to. It's free. It's on the Mac Exchange, on the App Exchange. Go find it. But at Dreamforce,
yes,
we were actually talking. You were talking at Dreamforce in a permission sets.
I heart permission sets.
Yes,
breakout session.
A breakout session, which was about the new. At that point, the coming feature, or I guess it was in beta but not released yet, or
it was piloted. I think it was pilot, but it was coming in that release right after Dreamforce. And so it was in sandboxes potentially.
Why don't you talk to us a little about what permission sets are?
Sure. So permission sets are abstracted layers of permissions that you can grant to individual users of Salesforce. So they're object level permissions and such as the ability to edit an account or read contacts or delete leads or things like that. And also system permissions like API enabled or solutions manager, things of that nature. Those little checkboxes on a profile.
But Justin, I'm a Salesforce admin. I've been one for, I don't know, millions of years. I could do that all in profiles.
You absolutely can, and you're absolutely 100% correct. But the question comes when, there's 2 or 3 really good use cases for permission sets. One of them, very simple. You have a user that out of nowhere needs the ability to edit accounts. Everything else about them should be absolutely the same as it always was, except they should be able to edit accounts. And, their profile says they cannot edit accounts. And there's like 34 other people in that same profile.
Right. So if you change it on the profile
for the one user, the rest of those 33 users have to also now be able to edit accounts, and that wasn't the intended purpose. You could clone the profile because you want it to be exactly the same except for that one little change, but now you've created a whole new profile that you have to administer for one user, which doesn't scale very well. So you could create something called a permission set, and the permission set includes one or many individual permissions, such as edit accounts, and then assign that permission set to a user. So you're literally getting that much more granular with the permissions that you're granting to a user at that given point.
So I now have 3 layers of this permissioning. I now have the role hierarchy, which is talking about
sort of separate.
But for Salesforce users, we talk about role hierarchy as a way of showing and visibility to data. Mm-hmm. We then have profiles, which I can set across many users. And then now I can have these things called permission sets, which I can build and assign to one or many users at will and give them very granular, one-off permissions.
And they're meant to be additive, so they add to what the user's profile already allows them to do.
Right, so you don't take away
with permission sets. You add, give. Okay. So you give the ability to edit accounts when their profile would say you can't edit accounts. So that's like one use case, right? The one user who raises their hand one day and says, I need to edit accounts, and their manager says, yeah, they have to edit accounts. A couple other use cases that have come up that are really, really interesting. When you want to do a new rollout of a pilot application, or there's a new object that you've created that is related to an account. Maybe let's just call it invoices, just for argument's sake. And you have this new object called invoices, and you want to roll it out to the finance department over time. But you want like 1 or 2 of the finance department's power users to take it for a test drive. So you could create a permission set called finance object permissions and give it, create, read, edit, delete, whatever you want. And then give that permission set to 1 or 2 users. And then all of a sudden, they'll be the only users who can see this new object and interact with it and give you feedback as an administrator. So you can pilot new functionality using permission sets without having to, clone profiles, give new permissions, remember when you want to roll it out for real to then migrate those users back to their old profiles and then change it. There's a lot of administration that goes along with piloting an application in a production environment. Permission sets allow you to do it rather easily by just giving the permissions to the new functions to the 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 users who you want to pilot new stuff.
Yeah, and they're definitely used more. I mean, the bigger your org, the more you're going to need to use permission sets. So we've run into orgs with 60, 70, 80 profiles.
Yep.
That's with hundreds or thousands of users, that's a problem, because when you have 60 to 60 profiles, managing that and figuring out who has, and I remember, in these orgs we've had profiles named for people, because like literally that one person would have the whatever
Jason
profile.
Atwood profile.
Right. And at that point just becomes very, very hard to manage going forward. Especially when you're assigning things to, new things into the org, and says, what profiles do you want to give this to? You're like, 1 of 60.
Yep.
That's a problem.
And the last, not the last, but another really good use case for permission sets is when somebody goes on leave. Somebody has a specific job that they do, inside of the org, and they go on leave, right? Yep. They go on maternity leave, or they go take a sabbatical or something, and somebody else has to take over their job.
Right.
You don't want to change their profile to that other person's profile because you don't want to change their whole world. Right. You just want to give them a few added permissions because that person was responsible for, merging contacts or deleting things or doing something specific. So you just create a permission set for them for the time being. When the person goes on leave, you give the new person with the new responsibilities that permission set, and then when the other person comes back, you just take it away.
Right.
You didn't change their profile. You didn't do anything. You just created a permission set, assigned it, and then took it away.
So this all sounds wonderful. You were talking about this, and basically I think what came up was that, when you get into assigning multiple permissions, the ability to assign multiple permissions to multiple users became kind of difficult.
Yeah, there was no really good admin screen for to take a permission set or 4 permission sets and assign it out to more than one user. To assign a permission set in the standard interface, you navigate to a user record, which, you either go through the customized screen and go to users and then find their user, or you search for them, you click their name, you land on their chatter profile, then you click the user detail link. So already you've clicked a few times.
Right.
And there's a related list for permission sets where you click edit, and then you find the permission sets that you want to assign to them. You use that side arrow, that multi-select picker, and then hit save. So you've gone through 3 or 4 or 5 steps to assign one or many permission sets to one user.
Right.
If you want to roll that to 10 users, you have to do that times 10.
Right.
If you want to do that to 40 users, you have to do that times 40.
So
it just keeps going.
So how much would you pay for a tool that would allow you to assign multiple permissions to multiple users?
I pay $0.
Right. So therein lies the fact we at Arkus decided, actually speared on by the product manager of permissions, we can give him, or the permission sets, you can give a shout out.
Adam Torman.
We basically said, why don't we build a utility to help do this process? A, we happen to do a lot of work with permission sets because we have an expert in the house, aka you.
Yep.
And B, we like to build stuff that's kind of unique and kind of helps out in the community. And again, we're not into building pay apps yet, or probably ever, but yet. And so we built this, and it's called the Permissioner. It went live yesterday. And it is an application that allows you to do exactly what it is. It is, what I like to say, it is simple elegance because it does one thing and does it very well.
It's a scalpel, not a utility knife.
That's right. It's a scalpel. So it's on the App Exchange now, and it's called the Permissioner. And the tagline is?
Permission sets made easy.
There you go.
And it's got a real cool logo. So I want to hear about your thoughts about the logo.
The Permissioner
folks.
Logo. So head it out. That is our joint pick app of the week, the Permissioner. It is free. You can take it for a test drive. We do not have a video. We did a video for Compliance for Chatter, but we didn't do a video for this.
Didn't do a video for this. This is, install it in your sandbox and play with it. If you are, I'll say 2 things. Number 1, if you're not using permission sets at this point in time, you're missing out because it is the future of where permissions are going within Salesforce. So you're going to want to familiarize yourself with permission sets because it really is going to be the future of where these permissions are going. As far as profile type permissions. And secondly, you may as well get used to it and install a free app in your sandbox and give it a shot. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, it's nice
for anyone who likes to play around with free stuff.
And if you take it for a test drive, we actually have an org. I think it's live now.
There's a test drive org, so you can just take a test drive from the App Exchange listing. It has a few permission sets in it that you can play around with. Get yourself familiar with permission sets. We actually include, when you install the Permissioner, we include a permission set with the application that you can assign to people that allows them to use the Permissioner.
Oh, very cool. The Permissioner.
That's going to be coming too, by the way, just for you admins out there. People, when they are writing AppExchange products, will start, if they're using their noggin, to include permission sets within their application to use their application.
And you will need Permissioner to assign that
right on
to all the users. All right, so go ahead. It's free. It's our gift back to the world of Salesforce. And Adam. So now let's get to our actual CloudFocus app picks of the week. I will have you go first. What is your pick of the week?
All right, so my pick of the week involves a little story. So I'm going to tell it right now. So I've been using Seamless Web, which is now seamless.com, for a long while to order food. It's an online menu service that is in a bunch of cities across the country, but we're here in New York. So you get to see menus, you get prices, whatever, you pick what you want, you put it into your little cart, you hit go, it takes a credit card, it pays for it, it shows up at your door 30 minutes later. I love it. I never have to call ever again to order food. I just go online, takes my credit card. Beautiful.
By the way,
go on.
You've been using Seamless
forever.
You've been telling me about it forever. I've yet to use it. I want to use it. I only order
out. It's getting better and better where we live.
In our neighborhood.
More when I first moved to our neighborhood a little over a year ago.
Yes, we live in the same neighborhood.
A little over a year ago, there were like 8 restaurants on it. Now there's like 20 to 30. It's getting there. It really is. But in the city, you know, we're in Times Square. I order lunch all the time. I mean, there's hundreds of restaurants on there that deliver to Times Square. I mean, everyone will. So, but the other day, speaking of our MacBooks here, I had to put my MacBook, I had to give it to the Genius Bar.
Okay.
I needed to give it to them because I needed a new logic board.
Awesome.
Whatever. So I was sitting in the apartment without a computer, and I wanted to order some food. So I downloaded the Seamless app to my iPhone for the first time, and it used my location, and it actually, since I have an account, it pulled from my recent my addresses that were stored in there, and with like 4 clicks on my iPhone, I ordered dinner, paid for it, ordered it, came to the apartment 30 minutes later. It was fantastic. Good experience. Seamless is great website, really good iPhone, iPad app. I recommend it highly for those who order out quite a bit and want to take the pain out of calling up and needing to have the menu. Like, you don't need the menu anymore. It's there. You just click what you want. Like, I won't order from a place that's not on Seamless anymore because I don't feel like calling them. It's really weird.
Well, and I think that's, as someone who's lived in New York for most of my life, and we do order out a couple times a week, maybe once or twice a week, which would be a couple, and have for many, many years. In my household, the deal is that I pay, she orders. Because I don't like ordering.
No, it's a pain.
It's a pain. And
like, sometimes you're talking to people who don't speak so great English.
They put you on hold.
You got to give them the credit card number because you don't have cash. Like, that's a whole big thing.
You have an old menu. So when you say I want the number 14, instead of chicken fried rice, you get chicken fried pork. And no good. So, yeah, it's funny because I love the concept. I have yet to do it.
You got to try it because the neighborhood's growing and there's a lot more restaurants on there these days.
I just went and checked it out, and there are
some of your favorites are on there too.
Some of my favorites, although again, the one that we order from all the time is still not here. So,
but you can go in there. I've done this to other restaurants
and tell them.
Yeah, be like, why aren't you on Seamless? And then you just tell them about it, and they're on.
Okay.
They just say, "Oh, that's easy. I'll do that."
So Seamless for the iOS. Of course, you can just use the website if you want.
Yeah,
$0.
Free.
It's free.
Awesome service.
It doesn't cost you any more money?
No.
So they make a cut. They must
take a cut out of the delivery service or something. I don't know if they're. See, I don't know if. Because sometimes it comes in a Seamless bag, and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know if, like, they're the delivery service and they charge back the restaurant for that, or how they do it. They must take a cut. Sometimes they have deals, like 15% off because you're ordering through Seamless that you wouldn't get elsewhere.
That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, you just add your tip and away you go.
Yep. My pick is the most cloudiest of all the app picks ever.
I'm picking my television next week.
Okay.
I'm going to pick my record player next week.
All right, because I was going to say you should have picked Roku next week, but now you've blown it. I've already taken it away from you. Because I was using this the other day.
I was using this 45 minutes ago.
A tool that we both have because the holiday spirits gave us all one. And it's just something that I just have been enjoying, and I wanted to spread need to spread the love.
You know what? The love for this product should be spread. Without further ado, what is it?
All right, so it is called the Jambox. So basically, ever since the iPhone, iPad, all these things, what you've gotten is I have this device that has songs or music or whatever on it, but a crappy speaker, right? So my iPad is great, but it basically has a crappy speaker. I mean, it's not a good speaker to sit and listen to music or to have a conference call or to whatever. And the one on the phone is still not good. So what I went looking for was one that had, basically they have this new category called these portable Bluetooth speakers. There's lots of them. There are about 4 or 5 of these. I went and read all the reviews. The one I landed on was the Jambox by Jawbone, the makers of the Jawbone, the Bluetooth thing. And it is I'm picking up actually yours because we're in your studio. And it is a, I don't know, 6 by
it's a
2
rectangular
by 1
cube.
It's a cube. It's battery operated, internal battery. It has on-off switches and a couple of things on top, but basically it's a Bluetooth speaker. So what's nice about it...
It looks like a brick.
It looks like a brick. And you can come in different colors. You have a...
Mine's red. It looks like a brick.
I have a black one. And basically you can pair it to your phone or iPad or even computer.
Any Bluetooth device. I've paired it to my computer before.
And you can then stream your audio. So in some cases, like what I use it for is Pandora. I put the thing in front of me on the desk, and I have my iPad off to the side, and I put on Pandora. Or the other day I was putting together some cabinet, and so I had my iPad up on one shelf, and I had the thing over on another shelf because it's Bluetooth. They don't have to be anywhere near each other.
Right.
It's battery operated, and so you just let them have, and then it plays music. It's just a very cool app. I mean, a very cool thing. You can plug it up to the internet and download new features into it or new voices. It's weird.
It has a voice.
It'll tell you how much battery it has. It's very simple. It's very well built. It's light. You can pack it up. So I take it on vacations with me because
I have done that as well.
Because then you put it in your hotel room and you just listen to music.
But it's not just a speaker.
Right. It
is also a microphone.
Right.
Which for myself, I use it for conference calls constantly.
Right.
So I have my iPhone, which has a crappy speaker for a speakerphone.
Right.
And this thing's a great speakerphone. It just turns my iPhone into a office speakerphone.
Yep.
That allows me to be hands-free.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So you can literally have your iPhone.
My phone's in my pocket or sitting across the room. The phone rings. The Jambox rings.
Yep.
You hit the button on the top of the Jambox. It answers the phone.
So,
it's really well done.
So it's very cool, and it's why I had to bring it as a CloudFocus App Pick of the Week. Because
it's a good pick.
It's a cool
I
thing.
love it.
I think we've gone through enough. I mean, 86 episodes. We've gone through
enough software.
We've gone through a lot of software. Let's throw in a couple pieces of hardware now and again. Stuff that people haven't heard of. They might be interested.
I said, I'm going to pick my Techniques turntable next week.
I will say the only probably drawback at it is not cheap.
No.
For what it is and for the smaller thing, it's a little bit on the high side.
But the quality is right there. Because it sounds like a shelf speaker.
Yeah.
And it is tiny.
Yeah. So it's $199. Probably available on everywhere. I think you can get it for less now. I think it's maybe $179. I think it should be about $149 or $129 is where I think its best price point is.
Looks like Amazon has it for $179.
There you go.
But if I did the old Google shopping, looks like I could get it for $149 from a store.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a real store or not. They're always different colors. Anyway, it's Jambox by Jawbone.
$133 from somewhere.
Yeah. It is a really cool little piece of hardware. Again, rechargeable. It's great. Buy one if you can with your tax refund money. It's a great thing.
They sell it on the online Apple Store as
a
thing to pair with your iPhone.
Oh, I will say, well, the iPad. If you watch a lot of movies on your iPad, it's nice. You can set it up so it goes like kind of in front of your iPad, and it makes your iPad like watching a movie like a better phonic experience.
Right.
So I've done that too. Great thing. Jambox, $190. It's at jawbone.com or Google it. Jambox, Jambox. All right, that's it. So for the podcast, you can go to blog.arkusinc.com, as you know, and read up on it, on all the blog posts and all the CloudFocus weeklies that are up there. You can follow the company or Justin or I at Arkus Inc. or Jason M. Atwood or Just Edelstein. You can go to Facebook and facebook.com/Arkus Inc. We have the new timeline view. I actually updated Google. Actually, Google Plus just came out with a new interface. I updated our Google Plus page with the same picture, which is of an Arkus cloud for all of you. And we are all on Google Plus, as another 2 or 3 of you are. And as always, for the podcast, go to iTunes, subscribe via iTunes or Instacast. I'm still loving. And leave a review there. We would love it. We have not had a lot of reviews recently. I don't know if everyone...
I think it's because we don't ask for it anymore. Or they've gotten used to our show and they are no longer listening at this very moment.
They have turned it off. They don't want to listen to music
They've already turned it off.
They're not even listening to what we're saying.
Not at this point.
Well, leave a review. The best part's right now. This is when I give away free money every week. But until next week, enjoy those cloudy